So, okay, so let's talk about you. And start me off with just telling me a little bit about yourself and kind of like what you do. I'm really curious about like how you like why you started eating plant-based and sort of what was the thing that motivated you to do it.
Yeah, so I'm a nurse. I'm actually a nurse case manager, which is not like a bedside nurse. We help discharge patients. So we work alongside everyone in the hospital, doctors, therapists, bedside nurses. So I do that, which can be stressful and exhausting, because you're working with patients and families and trying to discharge them safely. So there's a lot of complexities with that. And so I have always actually been a really good eater. I've been fortunate that I don't gain weight. I can eat anything I want until I hit 50. and then things changed. But I was at an event with a girlfriend of mine, and she had brought the potato salad from I think it's from your blog, maybe. And I don't like to eat mayonnaise. I've never really enjoyed mayonnaise, so I tend to stay away from it. So she was asking me, "Oh, did you try the potato salad?" I'm like, "No, I really don't like mayonnaise." And she said, "This doesn't have mayonnaise in it." And I'm like, "What?" And it tastes good. So I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." So I tasted it and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So I ran back over to her and I'm like, "I need the recipe for this." And then she started talking to me about your website and about all the different meals and recipes. And so she just said, "Click on here, check it out and see what you think." So I did. And I never really had plant-based in my mind because, like I said, I've always considered myself a healthy eater anyway. So I just liked that dish and I thought, okay, I'll just go and grab the recipe. Well, as I started looking at all the recipes, I'm like, oh, this sounds really interesting. I haven't heard of half of these ingredients, but I'm game. I'll try it. So I started just with a few simple recipes, and they were just so good, really flavorful. I felt better, my stomach felt better. I was sleeping better. And I'm like, there's something to this. And I love fruits and vegetables anyway. So it was more about eating more beans because I really did not like to eat beans. I'm a gassy girl anyway. And so I'm like, I want to stay away from those things. So but as I started learning how to cook them, and then I was reading on the Facebook group some tips on, how to kind of remove the stuff so you're not as gassy. So I'm like, I love it. And then I discovered the meal plans. It was like, it was like the skies opened. And I was like, this is totally for me because I love to cook. I was already using recipe books. I have 20, 30 different recipe books. And I'm like, this gives me all the ingredients I need, recipes to follow, food for the week, what's not to love. So then I joined the meal plans. And I've been doing it ever since.
That's so cool. It's really interesting that the thing that kind of reeled you in to this way of eating was the food. And it's you just liked the food and you kind of it sounds like you just got curious about the food and then it tasted good. And so you were into it.
Yeah, totally.
And I really like that. I mean, I think because a lot of people, when they make this switch, it's for a very specific reason. Maybe it's a health reason or, they're trying to get healthier or lose some weight in a healthy way. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it's but you kind of did the reverse. You're like, oh, this food is actually really good. So it's just about the food. And I can really appreciate and relate to that because I love to eat. And I love good food. And for me, it's it doesn't matter how you're eating. If the food doesn't taste good,
right.
It's sad. It's horrible.
Yes. Or if it makes you feel bad. I mean, that was my thing. It's my stomach would feel so bloated. And honestly, I would toss and turn at night because I couldn't sleep. And it's so funny because not you, but just in general, people may not relate eating to how you're feeling, which is, it's kind of like there's a disconnect, and at least it was for me. So it never really registered that my tossing and turning and my stomach ache was necessarily related to the foods I was eating. Yeah. And as I started eating this way, I, sleep really well. And I've tried different recipes. Like I did the the turmeric chai tea. Oh my God, that helped me sleep like a baby. And so, it's just really fun to kind of play and try different things. And it's funny because it's not a diet. For me, this is truly my way of life. Even though I'm not 100%, I will admit to that, because I still, like to, when I go out, I'm going to be open and just eat what I want to eat. But in general, I want to say like 85% of the time I'm eating this way.
I think it's really good to leave that open and to leave that, I might do this as much as I want, but if I'm going out to eat, like giving yourself that wiggle room, I think it really helps because for a lot of people who, well, I don't know. Have you ever gone on diets before? Were you a dieter at all?
I was.
And what I find usually, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but when you're dieting, it's like you're focusing on what you can't have and what it's restricting. And it's not really all that sustainable because it's about what you can't have. And as humans, we want what we can't have. Right. So we have this mindset of like, okay, I can't have this. So it's like this mental, just sort of like, I don't know, spinning a wheel that just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. Yeah. And when you said earlier, like, this is your lifestyle, that's exactly it, right? Like, it's so not a diet because it's all about eating.
It is. And I have a lot of the ingredients now. So even when I don't necessarily want to batch the entire meal or the entire week, I know that, let's say like the chili, for example, I didn't have to go out and buy anything for that because I already had the beans and all the spices and, I do the plant milk. And so it's like I already had everything. But without this meal plan, I would be sitting around like eating chips or something because it's like I have everything in my pantry. I just don't know what to do with it.
So you're a single mom and you're a nurse. And so I would imagine that you are extremely busy.
Extremely busy. Yes.
And so I want to hear how you do your batch cooking and how you get it done with your schedule.
So I actually just got a new job. I have a huge promotion. So thank you. So it's been 3 months, but I am now commuting. So I commute an hour to work and an hour home. So I usually will cook on the weekends, usually Sunday. And it's so funny because sometimes I'll batch the entire meal plan. Other times I'll just batch one meal or 2 meals, depending on how I'm feeling. But what I was going to say is that because I don't really like, when I batch the entire meal, it feels like leftovers to me, even though I know I've cooked it, like fresh. But it's just this whole mentality of like, I don't really like to eat leftovers. So what works for me is that I will batch something on Sunday that will last me a couple of days. And if I've cooked 2 meals, then that lasts 4 days usually. But if for some reason, like this week, I just batched yesterday the chili, and then tonight I will batch something else because I like to have my food fresh. It's like I said, just me.
Yep. So you kind of go through it. So you don't do like a big batch. You just kind of batch a couple things and then you're just cooking during the week.
I do. So I don't always do it that way, but I'm finding that kind of works for me, especially because I try to find meals that have the same ingredients. So, if something is using a onion, then I'll find a recipe that also uses the onion or the bell pepper. I'll try to kind of pair the recipe so all the food that I bought can be used. And it's working out. It actually works out really well.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. I think it's a good reminder that you are using the meal plans as kind of like, that's your kind of your blueprint, kind of your canvas. And then from there, you can kind of make it your own and make it work with your life and what you have time for and what you prefer. Because there is no one like right way to do it. And I think a lot of people think that, okay, I'm going to do this and I have to do it all exactly how it's laid out. And no, not at all. I mean, I tend to batch on Saturday and I usually batch the whole thing, but sometimes like I'll batch half of it and then I'll batch the other half throughout the week, I mean, depending on what I have going on. So I think that's cool though, that you found a way to make this work, even though you're so busy, you're still committing to putting in this time to really fuel your body. And I'm sure that you benefit from it throughout the week because you are so busy. You need all the energy you can get.
Exactly. And when I take it to work, because like I said, it's usually me, sometimes my youngest one. And it's so funny because when my youngest one wants to, like last night, she wanted the chili and I was like, darn it, I wanted that for my lunch the next day. So I was like, okay, I'm going to split a little bit for her and a little bit for me. But usually I'll have enough left over that I can take some to work for lunch the next day. So yeah, I'm eating, I feel like really great with the food that I'm eating.
Yeah. If somebody is watching this who is either new to this or just sort of thinking about it and hasn't really started eating this way, what would you because you've done this for a while now, what would you tell them to kind of, give them a little word of encouragement or advice?
Well, the biggest thing is be gentle with yourself. Don't think you have to know it all. Don't think you have to go out and buy every single ingredient. One of the biggest things is that you can totally mix and match. I mean, if you don't have pinto beans, use a different type of bean. If you don't have spinach, use kale, or, it's like you can just be fluid with it and be flexible. Don't be so rigid. And I'm a type A personality, so I'm all about rigid. But, it's truly give yourself some grace and just try it, just try different things. And what you guys always say, which I truly think about all the time, is use what you have. Use what you have in your kitchen, use what you have in your pantry. It'll all work out.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And because we don't want to people just, you don't have to, there is no perfect. And if you go into it just as playing and experimenting and just kind of seeing how it's all going to work, I think that mindset is really good because it's more about curiosity and fun than it is you have to do this. And if you don't, because really the recipes are so forgiving that really I've made our recipes with the most crazy substitutions. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, but it's what I have. So especially during the, in the beginning with the COVID, I was like, I'm not going to the store. I'm really going to use what I have because I'm totally, quarantining myself. And also a lot the stores here in Hawaii, we were out of almost everything. So there were some funky substitutions going on, but none of them were awful. They all work. So I think that's great advice and something that everybody could benefit from hearing. So I think that's great. So what do you think, for you, is this something that you just can see yourself continuing to do?
I definitely believe I can. As I mentioned, I mean, it really is a lifestyle, and I swear I'm going to be a meal plan subscriber forever because even if I batch just one meal from the meal plan, for me, it's totally worth it. Because I can, later on say, oh, you know what, there was something else in that meal plan I wanted to try and go back and try it. So I just love having so many options. So I definitely know that this is my life. This is the way I'm going to live it. And like I said, I mean, I'm honest with myself as well, that when I go out, although I have to say, I've become way more bolder when I go out to restaurants to ask for what I want. So if I want hummus without the swirl of olive oil on top, I ask for that. And, they're willing to do it. I went to an Italian restaurant. It's like a small family-owned restaurant. And there was really nothing on the menu that I was interested in eating, like lots of cheeses. And I just was like lots of meats. And I just wasn't in the mood for that. So I asked the guy, I'm like, do you have anything on here that's vegetarian? And he says, oh, well, you can have this, I think it was chili reno or something. And I'm like, well, no, I really don't want that. And I said, I see you have like a few vegetables. So can I just have like some pasta with vegetables? And he says, oh, yeah, sure. And I said, well, what vegetables do you have? And he says, well, we have broccoli. And I'm like, good start. Zucchini and mushrooms and onions. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. So he brought it all out. And then I also asked, I said, can you do like a little light on the oil? I really prefer not to have a lot of oil. No problem. Brings it out. And I have to tell you, Molly, it was like one of the best meals I've ever had at a restaurant. So I told the guy when he came back, I'm like, you should probably add this to your menu because it's really good.
Yes, that's awesome. I love it. Like high fives for you for just asking for what you want. It's so important because you're so right. Like it's usually really not a big deal.
Yeah.
And if they can't do it, what are they going to say? No? Okay, well, you tried,
Exactly. I mean, you lost nothing by asking.
And I have been in so many situations where I have sort of like built this weird meal because they're willing to, like they almost find it kind of fun. I mean, some chefs actually really are like into it. They're like, oh yeah, let me see, because they want to do something different. And then I do the same thing. I'm like, you guys should make this when your shift is over and try it because you'll probably want to put it on the menu because it's really good. Yeah. So good for you.
You and I are changing restaurants one meal at a time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, good for you. I mean, we have to look out for ourselves. Like,
absolutely.
I think that once we realize that, like, okay, we are like adult humans now and we have to parent ourselves. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to take responsibility for our health and our well-being and our happiness. That I think that we do get a little bit more confident and bold just to ask for what we want. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's people need to hear that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, you're welcome.
I love that you love food, and that's what kind of drew you in, because I think you totally can be a foodie and eat this way. Because if you think about it, like how many ingredients have you cooked with over the past year? Like so many. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say a lot.
Like a lot. And if you think about just how many different kinds of beans and legumes there are, or different kind of whole grains, or different kind of sauces you can make from cashews. I mean, it is really like all about the food and all about finding like joy in eating this way, joy in cooking. And so I love that. And I think that for people who are making this switch for whatever reason, I do feel like that is a very attractive and tempting and a really easy thing for people to get excited about.
I agree with you. I think that even if you have like a particular type of food that you enjoy, let's say it's Mexican food, or, even if it is Burmese food, like your meal plans tend to go different places,
Totally.
So
yeah.
You're not really going to miss out on stuff that you've enjoyed before. So it's just going to, I love that I'm trying or eating the same foods I like in a different way. So it's very cool. And it's amazing that the flavors taste like the flavors I was eating before,
Exactly. Because people think that, oh, well, I've heard that before. Like, oh, I'm surprised how this tastes like. It has all of the flavors of the other stuff. And I think a lot of people thought that it was like the meat that was doing that. I'm like, no, it's all about the spices. Right. It's all about the alliums. It's all about like the sauteing of the peppers and the onions and the garlic. Like that's where the flavor comes from. Right. Like it's not necessarily the meat,
Right.
It's everything else that was making the meat taste good. Like right. And so it's this paradigm shift for a lot of people. And when they put that together, it's like, okay, this can be really tasty. This can be really yummy. And it's also, it makes you feel really, really, really good. So like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to tell you though, I'm still surprised. I think I've been with you guys 4 or 5 years. Every time I make a meal, I'm still surprised at how good it tastes.
You know what? I am too sometimes. Like I am too, because I follow the meal plans. Like, and I will say, I don't know what I would do without the meal plans, because I also like, even though I do develop recipes and I do work on the meal plans with Tammy and Jen, it's like, I still just want to be told, because when I'm doing the meal plans, I'm not Molly Patrick of Clean Food Dirty Girl. Like, I'm just Molly Patrick. Like, I just need to eat. And so it's like, I just want to be told, because the rest of the week I am really busy. So for me to go into my classroom and just like follow what is laid out, it's a huge, it's like this mental space that you didn't realize you were clogging up. Is all of a sudden free because you don't have to think about this.
Exactly. And even like sometimes I'll just like, I go to the farmer's market now. Thank you, Clean Food Dirty Girl. I mean, I was doing it before, but not nearly as regularly as I'm doing it now. But I'll go to the farmer's market and I'll see like, oh, I want some Brussels sprouts, or, oh, you know, whatever it is that I'm kind of in the mood for. And then I'll just hop in the classroom. I'll put in the ingredients that I bought and see what comes up. It's so fun.
Yeah, it is. It's like magical. And I think, you know, we couldn't have created what we created if all of us on our team like didn't fucking love to eat. Like we all love to eat, and we all love food, and we all love cooking. And so I think that like energy is what has been able to get us where we are, because we're like, okay, what would we want? You know?
Right. Well, I have to say, you know, we call you guys wizards, and I totally think it's wizardry, however you say that word. When, you know, when I am kind of in the mood for something, I can find it, you know, and it's not even just meal plans, but just on the free blogs or the recipes, you know, it's like anything I really want to make. If I'm in the mood for something, I'll just hop in the classroom and I'll type it in and see what pops up. It's really awesome. Like I wanted a tuna, you know, quote unquote tuna salad. And so I was like, tuna salad, and it popped up. I made it. I took it on a hike with me, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good.
We have it covered because we've been doing this for so long, and we create new recipes every week that we have so many. It's like whatever you're in the mood for, like whatever it is, it's there. Like it'll, and whatever it is, like if you're craving something, you know, do it, and that craving will be nipped in the bud. Like, it'll be like, oh, done, taken care of.
Totally was. Yeah, it totally was. And it really doesn't take that long, you know, for kind of the recipes that I am looking for. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say. So with the meal plan, sometimes I can get a little overwhelmed because there's all these steps and it looks like all these ingredients. So it's like, But so what I've done to kind of counteract that, because for me, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, then it's like, I'm just going to do it later. And then I never do it. So what I decided to do is like, I'll put like the spices together, because that list seems really long, but once you look at each of them, it's like, okay, well, they all are going in the same place. So then I'll put them in a little bowl together. And so it's like, okay, that part is done. And then I'll like move on to, if it's rice that I'm making, then I'll make the rice. And then I'll start like putting together the Brussels sprouts, and then I'll put those in the oven. So I've kind of figured out like a method that's working for me. But that would be the other little piece of advice for people, is do not get overwhelmed because, you know, the recipes are like a whole page long, and then there's a whole nother page on what to do with all that food. And so I just have decided I'm taking it one step at a time, one ingredient at a time, and then I get through it.
Yeah, that's good, because some of our recipes are quite long, and we do tend to use a lot of spices, but like that's also why the food is so good.
Yes.
And so it's sort of like, okay, it's you know, it's like there are easier like recipes with less ingredients out there, and I get it. If people need to start with those, then do that. But if you want like the flavor, like that's kind of where it's at. So I think that it's good. Take it one step at a time, and that's how I do recipes too. Like I look at the spices, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put all of the spices in a little jar, or in a little like ramekin, and then just like put that aside, and then look and see what's next. And sometimes I'll do that with like for multiple recipes, like, okay, what are, like, I'm going to do the spices for this, and I'll, this is a very crucial step though. Like I take a little masking tape and write down what recipe that is for, because I don't want to like mix them up. And then I'll look at the spice mix in the next recipe and kind of like set that aside. And so that kind of, and all the other thing that I do, and this might help people, is that when I'm batching, like when I take a recipe out of my, I keep all my spices in my freezer. So when I take out the spices, because I live in a place that's really humid, so they'll get moldy if I don't keep them in the freezer.
I was wondering about that.
If you have your spices somewhere else that's not really handy, like I just leave all the spices out on the counter until I'm totally done batching. I don't bother putting them away because I know I'm going to need it again.
So, me too. It's exactly what I do too.
Yeah. And
for
there's
that
a lot
same
of
reason.
little,
Although that's trial and error for me, because I was like putting it back, taking it out. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? So,
exactly. And that's the thing. Like once people do, and that's why I always tell people, like, it does get faster. You will
right.
find your groove. You will figure it
Right.
out, because there are like a lot of those little things that you do just, it's exactly, it's trial and error. It's like, okay, well, that
Mm-hmm.
makes more sense
Yep.
to just keep this out, or, I
Right.
mean, there's those, but that's like the learning curve too,
It is.
you know?
It is. And that's kind of what I've done for myself with some of the recipes. Like if I see, like I told you, I really try to find recipes that are using the same ingredients.
Yep.
So if I see that 2 recipes are calling for quinoa or, brown rice or whatever, I will just for myself, like double it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, Molly, I seem to never make enough. I'm always like, after I finish batching everything, I'll have one of the recipes for my dinner. And then I'm like, dang it, I just ate everything. Now I have
Should have
nothing
made
for
more.
exactly. So I just, even when I go to the farmer's market, I tell myself, okay, the recipe could call for like 4 cups. I'm going to make 8 cups because I know between myself and if my daughter, smells it and she's going to have some, I want to have enough. So,
well, that is considered a very good problem to have when when you feel like you can eat more plants than even is in the meal plan. I mean, that's
right.
like, that's all-star status there.
That's true.
Yep. I love it. Well, I love this. This has been so much fun. And
Yes.
thank you for doing it again and for just sharing. I think that it's helpful for people to hear how other people do it and how they kind of make it their own. I think there's always something to be gained from that. So
absolutely. I learned from others that I, watch in the Facebook group, you learn so much. People are just really great about sharing little tips that they've learned. So I love it.
Totally. And it's so helpful, especially for people who are new to this and feel kind of, intimidated about doing it. So that's why I love like just having these talks and connecting with our subscribers and with our community, because I get to know who you are, and it's fun. It's great. It's wonderful to connect with the people kind of behind the screen too. It's like
definitely. Yes, it is. Well, I am so glad we had a chance to do this again too. Thank you. It's been great.
You are so welcome. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.
Okay.
Bye.